Praise be to the Lord. When we feel that we are going through one of the hardest times in our lives, we can look at the example of David, who went through a very painful experience and what he did to overcome it, as in Psalms chapter 5. In verses 1, David says, "O Lord, hear me praying, listen to my plea." Here David is meditating on the prayer, and it's a quiet expression of his feelings. And so we ask ourselves, what do we do in a difficult situation? We hear a lot about people getting affected because of COVID, being isolated, stuck at home, losing their loved ones, and the list goes on and on. When our burden is beyond expression, all we can do is sigh before the Lord. Prayer is not always a quiet conversation with God. Sometimes it is a battle against the principalities arranged against us. David's response in such a situation was an individual worship, as in verses 7 he says, "I'll come into your temple and worship you with deepest awe." In verses 8, David makes another request. "Lead me as you promised me you would." In the midst of our hard times, what we need the most is the wisdom to know the will of God. Notice that David says to be led and not to be delivered. God has a way through each and every one of our difficulties, and that will finally lead us to victory. Further, in verses 11 and 8, David's response is rejoicing in faith, as he says, "But make everyone rejoice who puts his trust in you. Keep them shouting for joy because you are defending them." This joy that we talk about comes from God's work on the inside, not from the circumstances on the outside. So you need not be paralyzed by your difficulties. You have the privilege of praying to a loving, understanding Father who knows your situation. Amen.